If you guys end up enjoying this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share to someone. It supports the channel a bunch. Thank you. So, my most viewed video on my channel right now is my Tyler the Creator Wolf storyline video. One that I made during my initial discovery of Tyler's music and realizing that there was some kind of cohesive storyline that was being told across his first 3 albums, those being Bastard, Goblin, and Wolf. This led to a period of non-stop listening and reading of lyrics, trying to piece together all the themes and nuances in these albums, with me eventually concluding that the album's storyline played out in an unchronological order, with the order being Bastard, Wolf, then Goblin. Only after I released the video did I look up other people's interpretations, with me initially being hesitant towards this due to the prospect that it could have swayed my own personal interpretation. What I found is that before my video, most people thought the story played out in chronological order. However, in my opinion, there were just too many inconsistencies for that order to make sense to me. For example, at the end of Goblin, Tyler comes to the realization that he's been hallucinating pretty much all of the story events in his head, so it would make no sense for him to then go back to that way of thinking on the next album, meaning that Wolf had to be a prequel. And it's those hallucinations that are the topic of today's video. There's one main thing that I've seen has been misinterpreted and questioned countless times over, and that is the alter egos that span throughout pretty much all of Tyler's music. So I thought it would be good to give a rundown of every single character in the order of which they appear in the storyline, so that hopefully you have more clarity on the characters in the albums and the events that take place around them. So, starting off with Bastard, we have 3 main characters that are present, those being Ace, Dr. TC, and Tyler himself. Tyler is, of course, taking the role of himself, being the base of where all these alter egos come from. Despite this character appearing simply as the most realistic version of himself, you shouldn't mistake that during this 3-album period, as Tyler is still very much playing a character and playing into this storyline. What I mean by that is there's been several times where Tyler has implicitly stated that he made certain stuff and rapped about certain things simply for the artistic merit. As you can see in this tweet, he even says that he was over all the issues revolved around his dad from Bastard onwards, but still rapped about it because he knew it would make an engaging listen. And as we can see in the storyline, this idea of a lack of a father figure is what the character of Tyler is fixated on pretty much throughout the entire trilogy. He appears mainly on Bastard and Goblin, where these themes are most present, but of course is also present on Wolf. However, starts merging with different characters as he gets further and further lost in his mind. But that's where things get complicated. Let's just stick to the simple stuff for now. Secondly, we have Ace, which is the alter ego I notice gets most asked about. Basically because of his presence on Bastard and then absence from pretty much the entire rest of the storyline. We see him on tracks like Slow It Down and Odd Toddlers, where he primarily focuses on braggadocious lyrics and is shown to be violent in his behavior. He strays far away from what Tyler touches on, with Tyler always appearing to be a lot more sentimental and emotional, despite how gritty it may appear on the surface. It's on Bastard where we hear Ace actively introduce himself on tracks, however is only referenced in later albums, most notably in the song Yonkers from Goblin, where Ace's violent behavior is once again reinforced, claiming that he'd put a hole in Tyler's head. To me personally, this alter ego represents Tyler's aggression to the world, with Ace always having a noticeable confidence around him, but also unrelenting hostility. Finally, we have Dr. TC, one of the most pivotal characters in this entire storyline. Dr. TC serves as Tyler's therapist throughout all 3 albums, and is essentially painted as both Tyler's mentor, but also as somewhat of a captor. Bastard has the setting of a therapy session, with the theme of the album being very confined and personal, as Tyler essentially rambles off all of his thoughts, with Dr. TC occasionally popping up throughout the album, usually to ask Tyler to elaborate on his thoughts. It's explained that this need for therapy was spawned out of Tyler misbehaving, with there there being 3 sessions, which represents the 3 albums of the trilogy. Dr. TC is one of the most easily distinguishable characters, being characterized by his pitched down voice and calm tone, with him announcing his presence throughout all 3 of these albums. However, under this calm and collected appearance, there's a much darker side to TC's character, which I'll elaborate more on when we get to Goblin. So, that's all 3 characters from Bastard, but jumping into Wolf, there's even more characters that get introduced, both in and out of Tyler's mind. The characters from Bastard are all brought back, with Dr. TC announcing his presence right from the first track, where we also hear the presence of a new character. This new alter ego is known as Sam, someone who's established as being extremely hostile, insecure, and angry. The first thing we hear from Sam is him shouting down the character Wolf, after he asks if anyone's into jazz. However, as the album progresses, we get to learn more about this character, and discover that this tough front that he puts on is essentially to hide his true emotions and personal concerns. Songs like Pigs gives us more context on Sam's character, with him being sent to Camp Flognor, the location that Wolf takes place in, because of his violent behaviour, mainly aimed towards people who used to bully him. The other main character who gets introduced in this album is Wolf Haley, another character that starts to become confusing as you analyse the albums. Wolf is essentially the main character of this album, being the one who's introduced at the start and eventually ends up pissing off Sam by trying to get with his girlfriend. I think I confused a lot of people in my original video by all of a sudden just claiming that Tyler and Wolf are pretty much inseparable, so let me just elaborate on that. There's certain themes that are brought up throughout all 3 albums, with one of the main ones being the idea of this lake, something that is shown off in the alternate but now seemingly main cover for Wolf. Despite Tyler still being present on this album, with songs like Answer still feeding into his daddy issues, his character seems to almost merge with Wolf's. The main arc of this album is where Wolf starts hanging around with Sam's girlfriend, Salem, with Sam eventually finding out and launching a full-on gang war, which we see take place over the songs Parking Lot, Rusty, and Trashwang. I'm not going to go into the details here because I'm sticking solely to the alter egos, but I go much further in depth on all these parts in my first 3 videos on the Wolf storyline, so make sure to check those out if you want to know more. The point is that when we get to Goblin, these kinds of events and locations like the lake are brought up frequently, with the main character of that album going back to solely Tyler. So I've come to the conclusion that for Tyler to know these things, he would have had to be aware of what Wolf was getting up to, despite him not having any knowledge of what was happening with characters like Sam when he would go on drug runs in tracks like 48. If you have to rewind what I said a few times to understand it, don't worry, it is genuinely confusing. But ultimately, I think it all works when you break it down. So, by the end of Wolf, Sam gets his girl back, Wolf Haley and Tyler's personalities essentially become one, and he gets sent back to Dr. TC's office, which was the main location of Bastard, after getting caught jerking off in Tamale. Once again, I do have to say, if you're getting lost, make sure to check out my other videos because I elaborate a whole lot more. So, we then come to the final album in the trilogy, Goblin. Everything becomes a whole lot more pared down, with the backdrop of this album being a mental asylum. At this point, I wouldn't doubt if all of Tyler's personalities started merging together, with him showing characteristics from all of these previous characters in several songs. However, there's certain songs like Sandwiches where we can noticeably tell characters like Sam have made a reappearance. Songs like Yonkers especially show this sort of merging between alter egos, as Wolf Haley lists off the alter egos and how they're all a part of him and how he acts. The one new alter ego that gets brought up in this album is the character Troncat. This is probably the most violent and nasty character of them all, with him performing on a track sharing the same name as him, delivering some of the most dark and twisted lyrics throughout the entire trilogy. If you've watched my previous videos, you would have already known that the dark secret I mentioned earlier about Dr. TC is that this character essentially is him. Taking the initials from both characters, you can see they both have the letters TC, not only showing the connection between these alter egos, but also to the revelation Tyler makes at the end of the album, that all of these alter egos are taking place in his mind, with the initials TC also standing for Tyler's conscience. Despite Troncat only really appearing on the track of the same name, it's clear in songs like Bitch Suck Dick and Window that he's actively instructing Tyler to kill his friends that are coming to visit him in the asylum, with Tyler doing everything reluctantly and apologizing to his friends before killing them. Despite what Dr. TC says on Window about being there to help Tyler, he's essentially lying and putting up this front of being a calm therapist only so that he can instruct Tyler under the guise of Troncat to kill as many people as possible. So that's all of the alter egos from the Wolf trilogy, with most, if not all of them, eventually being killed off in the Sam is Dead music video. This showed a natural progression in Tyler's music, showing him moving away from these alter egos and the storyline in general to pursue different ideas and stories, despite some similar themes and references cropping up in his next album, Cherry Bomb. There is one final alter ego, however, that is removed from the Wolf storyline, and that is the character Igor. This character shares a lot of the same traits as characters like Ace and Sam, being aggressive, loud, and confident, with Igor only cropping up on tracks like New Magic Wand and What's Good. Most of the album is Tyler essentially pondering over his failing relationship, and in the latter half, what could have been, in a very somber and melancholic tone. However, it becomes very clear when Igor is present, with him screeching lyrics at the top of his lungs, even alluding to ideas like killing the person that his ex-lover had gotten into a relationship with. I think it's nice to see that despite moving on, Tyler still calls back to the ideas that were present in the Wolf trilogy. And that's pretty much all of the alter egos. I've heard some people claim that perhaps Tyler Baudelaire is an alter ego. However, I feel like in the context of Call Me If You Get Lost, it serves more as a representation of where Tyler currently is in his musical career and the types of emotions he's been experiencing. Let's not forget, on tracks like Wilshire, it's quite clear that everything Tyler is saying is coming straight from the heart, with no made-up storyline being present. Anyways, that was the video. If you guys enjoyed, make sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe with notifications on so you know whenever I upload, share this video to someone you know, and leave a comment on what you thought. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.